Hello chess friends and welcome to the of Chess channel and welcome back to our 150 attack series. So in this series I'm going to show you a very nice and effective way how to beat the modern defense, how to beat the Bergh defense, and today's study will be a beautiful and sharp attacking gameplay by the new Stockfish version, by the new Stockfish 15 engine against another top engine Tommy Tank chess. And this game is really incredible, and it's also confirmation that our studies that we have talked about previously here about the 150 attack really make sense, because Stockfish will apply the same method that we have talked about in my previous video about the 150 attack against the Bergh or modern defense. So Stockfish will repeat, as I said, our previous analysis of this very beautiful attacking method. So it's, I think, a great confirmation also for me, because I really would never show you something that I wouldn't play myself. So that's why I played the 150 attack. I wanted to show you aggressive method. I wanted to really show you the main attacking themes, and Stockfish will also repeat the same attacking theme. That's quite incredible, because on the h5 possibility many of us would not consider. I will explain you what I mean about this h5 motif, but it's really something that you have to know if you want to play this 150 attack against the Bergh defense, because if you don't play that, then you could lose maybe a completely winning game. And that's why I think the Stockfish studies, our studies, are very important in order to have a great preparation against the Bergh or modern defense structure. So let's see now how Stockfish 15 played the beautiful 150 attack. So here e4 played by Stockfish. Tommy Tank chess is opened with the move g6. We have d4, bishop to g7, knight to c3. This is also my recommendation, because if you play c4 you could gain some space in the center of the board, but actually then you're in d4 theory more. So that's why, in my opinion, knight to c3 much more aggressive. We're preparing our 150 attack with bishop to e3, queen to d2, knight to f3, h4, h5. So this is now the main attacking motif. So here in the continuation we have d6. This is now the normal Bergh / modern defense setup. d6, g6, bishop to g7, followed with knight to f6. So bishop to e3, we have c6. This is a very nice preparation by Black. We have talked about these ideas many times in our videos, and please also check out our previous analysis of the 150 attack series, because maybe in this video we'll not talk about some ideas that we have already talked about. So that's why it's very important to watch this series combined, so part 1, part 2, part 3, and so on. So here after move c6, Black is preparing the move b5. So Black hopes for that you maybe play queen to d2 and then you castle queenside. Then Black would have, I think, a decent game, because he could immediately attack your side where you have secured the king. So after move c6 here, Stockfish played knight to f3. We have b5, bishop to d3. We have knight to f6, and now queen to d2. Now we have reached the main attacking formation of the 150 attack. Look at this. The knights are on the most natural squares. The bishops are very aggressive here in the center of the board, because still you can always open the bishop's activity by playing maybe e4, pardon me, e5, d5, whatever you do, one of the bishops will get even more active. So the main goal about this move queen to d2 is actually, of course, if Black castles, to build this queen and bishop battery, trade off the bishop on h6, then we play h4, h5. We're trying, of course, to open the h file, and then with the queen and rook battery on the h file to deliver checkmate. So it's, of course, the main goal. Not of many of these games, as I also mentioned before, are ending with a checkmate on the h file, but this is actually our main attacking goal. Then the game can transpose into something else. Maybe you can gain a pawn, maybe you can gain some material if you play the 150 attack, but this is now our main attacking idea. So here after move queen to d2, kingside castling was played by Tommy Tank chess, and now immediately this idea, bishop to h6 followed with h4, h5. So we have here bishop to g4, and now h4 immediately here by Stockfish. So okay, let's see now what happens if you play, for instance, bishop to f3. If you're trying maybe to stop a little bit the progress of white, because white would also love to have maybe here a g pawn that could support maybe the further attack on h5. If bishop to f3 happens, then we have this one, g takes f3, then probably Black needs to play the move e5. If Black doesn't play the move e5 himself, then e5 could be played by white. Then after d takes e5, d takes e5, the knight has to move somewhere, and then maybe if the knight comes on d5, then we would have a beautiful opportunity to play the move h5. If h5 is possible, then you have a comfortable game. Even if the knight moves here on h5, still I think with knight to e2, knight to g3, you can always annoy a little bit this knight. So as I said, what you want to prevent is the move e5 that could deflect the knight from f6 from the defense of the king. So that's why here e5 would be a possibility. This wasn't played in the game, but I really wanted to show you again the study. This study we have talked about in my previous video, but again I really wanted to repeat this very important ideas. If black plays now e5, then we can play h5 immediately. Look at this, knight to h5, and then we can queenside castle. Again, if black takes, simply here e takes d4, then we have this one, knight to e2, and now I think black is simply lost. The evaluation is here +3 for white. Now with the move knight to g3, as I said, the knight will be annoyed here. Finally, the knight is the only piece that's defending the h file. Now with this beautiful attacking formation, black is simply lost. Look at this, this knight is not participating in the game, the rook is also out of game, so it's game over. So what you could do after move e takes d4, instead of this e takes d4 move, you could play of course knight to f4, but then we have talked about also this beautiful tactical shot, bishop to b5, c takes b5. Look at this, we have this one, d takes e5. Now bishop to h6 has to be played, rook to h6, and then queen to g5. But now we can build again this beautiful battery on the h file, and again black is simply lost. The evaluation is here 1.5 for white. Quite incredible attack. So again, you cannot also take because of the queen and rook battery on the d file. There's simply too much tension here. So as I said, this bishop to f3 seems sometimes like a good choice that could stop a little bit white's progress here with the move g4, g5, h5. So but it's not doing so much because it creates new attacking opportunities for white. So as said, after move h4, now comes b4, and again let's repeat what is the beauty about the move b4. Actually b4 is helping out white here in the continuation of the game, because after knight to e2, look at this, the knight is getting again to g3, and from the square g3 it controls the h5 square. So the h5 square, believe me or not, is now the most important square in the 150 attack. We want to grab the square, we want to attack the square. If black loses the game around the square h5, then the game is tactically lost. So here in the continuation we have knight to d7, bishop to g7, king to g7, and now comes the beautiful move h5. And that's the thing that I really want you to memorize in the 150 attack. h5, h5, h5. h5 is actually here a great possibility, although this h5 is covered by the pawn, by the bishop, and also by the knight. But look at this, whatever you do, let's see possible continuations. If you play here g takes h5, then the queen sneaks in with the move e5. First we're deflecting the knight, d takes e5, d takes e5, the knight has to move, then queen to g5, the king has to step back, and now with queen to h6 we're threatening checkmate. So black has to give up. I think here minor piece has to play knight to f6, then e takes f6, knight to f6, and the game is over. Knight to e5 can still be played, so it's not a good opportunity. Knight to g5 we can play, continue the pressure, so black has to resign here. So what you could do here, maybe after move h5, you could also take out with the bishop, nothing wrong with this, but now we play e5 anyway. Bishop to f3 doesn't make sense because first we're taking the knight with the tempo, with the check, so then you lose another piece. So that's why you would be forced again to play here d takes e5, then d takes e5. The knight has to step back, and again you can guess what will happen. Rook to h5, again the battle is lost around this square. G takes h5, queen to g5, again the queen sneaks in, again you have to sacrifice the knight. Knight to g5 will happen again, the game is over. So after move h5, so that's why here the Tommy Tank chess engine took with the knight to h5, but now knight to g3, and that was the beauty about the move b4. As I said, actually with the move b4, and I've talked about this idea previously in our series, actually with the move b4 black helped out white to maneuver the knight on even a better square. So this move b4 is an aggressive move, but actually it doesn't make sense. It's actually helping out white. So after move knight to g3 we have rook to h8, knight to h5, bishop to h5, and now here with the move knight to h2, look at this again. it's almost really poetic that black is again losing the game around the square h5, because now the bishop is on h5, and now the serious threat is of course g4 that could trap the bishop. Even if you play of course g5 to liberate some squares for the bishop, then queen to g5, bishop to g6, you can play now many things: f4, f5, knight to g4 with queen to h6 is going to happen. So again, the activity of white's pieces is too much to handle. You can even play e5. I'm not sure really what the best now move is, but it's really a beautiful attack now by white. So after move knight to h2, we have queen to b6 by Tommy Tank Chess, g4, trapping the bishop, bishop to g4, and knight to g4. Okay, black has some compensation, because after h4, knight to e3, black took another pawn, but of course white is up a whole piece, and this should be probably completely winning here for white. Queenside castling, knight to c5, rook to g1, very important move, because now I think one of the cool moves could be f4, f5 to open somehow the g file. In the continuation, we have e6, f4, rook to b8, rook to d1. We have b3, also good move here by Tommy Tank Chess, because here after move queen to f2, that was the only defensive move here by Stockfish. Knight to f5 is actually here a beautiful threat. Knight to f5, of course, creating a check in the discovered attack against the queen, so the queen would be lost. So that's why the queen has to step back in a way here. First, knight to d3, we have c takes d3, after queen c5, king to b1, okay, b takes a2, but now the king moves to a1, and okay, black gained another pawn, but actually these are double pawns, and the cool part is that actually black's king is defending defending white, black's pawn, pardon me, is defending white's king, so it's sort of a defensive idea, hiding behind your enemy's pawns. Now the king is perfectly fine, the king cannot be attacked, and actually now it's white that's on the attacking side with the possibility of the f5 move. So we have a rook from h to e8, we have rook to g1, again placing the rook where already the queen is. We have king to f8, d4, we have queen to b4, rook to d2. Now we want to play, of course, much more free with our pieces, now trying maybe to connect the rooks. We have rook to b5, f5, after e takes f5, now again a very important move, e takes f5, but now after g takes f5, d5, because so far, of course, knight to f5 is not possible, because you get rook to f5, the queen gets deflected from the defense of the rook, and this is now much better actually for black. So that's why first move d5, cutting off the connection between the rook and the pawn on f5. So we have queen to c5, rook to d3, rook to e5, rook to c3, attacking the queen. Now couple perpetuals attacking the queen. After rook to b4, now queen to g2 threatens, of course, a very nice check here on g8. So we have f4, we have a very nice counter attack here by Stockfish. If you take, of course, then the pawn is marching, you cannot stop the progress, and it's simply game over. So after the d takes c6, we have here f3, we have queen to f2, rook to c5, knight to d5. Again, the same idea. If you take, then we will simply push the pawn further. If you take, of course, here the rook, then we have, of course, the possibility to recapture with the knight. So here after move knight to d5, we have rook takes d5. Now again this idea, c7, rook to c5, promotion of a rook, rook takes, and it's game over. White is simply up a whole rook. So we have here rook to e1, we can cover, of course, with rook to c1, rook takes g1, rook takes g1, queen to a5. Now after a couple more moves here in this position, after rook takes, king takes a2, in this position, Tommy Tank Chess resigns. So really this is something really that you have to know, this h5 move. Please do this sometimes. Don't forget about this idea, because you don't want to lose or maybe make a draw out of a completely winning endgame here. So let's go back to the critical moment in this types of positions. It's really incredible that actually h5 is a possibility. This is, I think, a beautiful study. As I said, we have talked about these ideas previously, but again, we want to repeat this because it's so important to know this stuff, that actually this is quite a remarkable possibility, and you can use many times the same method, the same attacking formation against your opponent, and I think you could have really fun applying the 150 attack, and I guarantee you will also have beautiful success. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this Stockfish 50 study about the 150 attack. If you want to see more brutal games played by Stockfish 15 and some other top engines, please check out our common chess games played by computers with some beautiful sharp attacking games. And if you want to see also our 150 attack studies, please check out our previous analysis with some different possibilities for white and from black. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.